Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Hulst back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet for me, Jackson, welcome.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Doing well. It's Friday as we record this, so we both got a couple smiles getting ready for the weekend.
Absolutely.
What do you do, man?
What do I do? That's an involved question, right? Let's go TLDR to start, right? So currently I do paid media and performance marketing at a direct-to-consumer human-grade dog food company called PetPlate. It's great. I've tried the food myself, and it's very high quality, and we all eat it for lunch every single day. It's a lie, not actually true, but you could. But yeah, mainly focusing on really anything that has any paid behind it, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, paid search, kind of all goes through my hands at some point.
Human grade dog food, I would imagine, is logistically quite complex. Like, is there a pretty short shelf life to that?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's very logistically complex on the production side. We have an amazing operations team. They're super robust. Everybody over there is just a heavy hitter beyond belief. Without them, everything would just fall apart immediately. But because of all the forework that they did setting it up, and we were fortunate enough to have a founder, Ronaldo, who came from the production side of everything. He was actually, he tells the story on his Shark Tank interview that he did several years ago. He came from a background consulting in dog food production, maybe not specifically dog food, but he was in those type of situations. And he started it specifically to solve a lot of those logistical, health, and operational problems, and focused, of course, around the health of your dog too. But as far as the shelf life goes, we actually do pretty well. It's all gently cooked. So it's all human grade ingredients that go into it. But then it's flash frozen rather than the old school kibble where it's just burn and churn. It's cooked as you would cook your own food, and then flash frozen to lock in nutrition, make sure it's not degraded in any way. So it'll actually keep for I believe it's 18 months in the freezer.
Oh, wow.
It might be a year. But yeah, you just take it out when it's ready to go, defrost it like you would food for yourself from the supermarket, and yeah.
Yeah, the reason I guess I kind of set up that question is I always wonder how much interaction is going on between like operations and paid where you're trying to move certain products because, maybe you're getting towards the end of the batch, you've got some old stock you need to move. Is there any kind of drive like that happening at PetPlate, or are you guys pretty much just free to push whatever you want to push?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's always, brief moments where it's like, hey, we're a little bit lower on one specific SKU. Let's maybe not run any promotion around that specific product. But overall, I mean, we have a really robust, regular returning customer base. And we have, we employ a lot of people on the more computational side. We have a great data scientist on the team named Cody. And really all that sums up to the fact that supply very often meets demand remarkably well. They really don't try and keep anything overly produced on the shelves. We're not trying to stockpile. Again, our whole thing is human grade, fresh, you eat it yourself. And so you wouldn't really want one of those. When you go to the supermarket, you don't want to reach into the back of the cooler and pick out the Stouffer's from the freezer that's been there since, I don't know, probably the Bush days. You want the one up front that's, fresh. Yes, it's frozen, but it was made, in a reasonable time in the past. So there's a little bit of interplay, making sure that we're bringing on, the projected numbers that we told them ahead of time, and them being able to fill that quite accurately.
What does it look like from a paid perspective? Your funnel, are you focused primarily on cold traffic, or do you look at paid from like a middle to bottom funnel?
We try to take at least from my perspective on it, working with, the brand side of the house, it really does come out to be quite robustly full funnel. I know everybody wants to say, oh, we take a full funnel approach to acquisition, but I think we really do. We have a great brand team that develops kind of that higher funnel brand recognition and messaging so that people associate certain things with us. And, obviously I take it more medium to lower, but yeah, we've been doing a lot of campaigns that kind of stack on top of each other. So not only doing, some PR up top, but coupling that with some more micro influencers to, also drive traffic, but additionally get the word out. give a little bit of third-party validation. Then we pick it up with, cold traffic prospecting from social, as well as some pretty robust retargeting efforts to kind of bring it home at the bottom.
Yeah. Are you trying to bring it, because like the entrees, I got to imagine, are subscription friendly, very much so with pet food, because it's pre-proportioned pretty much. So you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I would imagine like the average lifetime or the lifetime value for a customer who sticks around has got to be really high. Is the strategy trying to focus on those people, bring them in, or is the strategy to kind of like sell some supplements or some dog treats or something and get your foot in the door and then, kind of upsell them?
I gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I am fortunate to come from, work at a company that is actually doing a lot of good and the product is quality. So there's kind of two sides to that. There's two different strategies. And I mentioned before we hopped on and started recording, our sales director, Josh, who's great. He's just an absolute killer. His strategy actually in retail, where we're trying to branch out into, is to put the more supplements, the treats and stuff, which have a much better, shelf display. It doesn't require a freezer install or anything like that. They look great. Our branding is fantastic. So he's more of, get people to pick those up, find the benefit of them, and then look on the website and then convert on the web type level, and then expand out and upsell into, more subscription-based food service. On the acquisition side and paid social, it's definitely probably the opposite. Like I said, our product is very high quality at the end of the day. So being able to sell someone on the idea of feeding your dog good food, you don't really need to upsell them. If they're going to buy into that messaging and they're going to get our product, they're going to love it. And there might be some tweaking of recipes of which one the dog will respond better to, what problems they have. But really, we just go for the whole package. Hey, if you want your dog to be healthier, if you want to solve these problems that they might be having, we offer something that could be a possible solution to a lot of those things. So we're fortunate enough to be able to kind of say, hey, we have a whole package of things and you can now buy them all at once. And of course, there's little upsells with, treats and things like that maybe aren't necessary. So yeah, from the two different perspectives, it's always interesting having conversations with the sales director, his strategy being the other way, and then ours being kind of, meat and potatoes first, so to speak.
Yeah. Literally, right?
Yeah, literally.
You talked about you guys are on Google, Facebook, TikTok. Which of the channels do you find is driving the most customers currently?
Yeah, definitely a lot of, we see funny things. And I'm sure that you were on Shark Tank at one point, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was Beard Brand. So I'm sure every once in a while, something will re-air and all of a sudden you'll check Google Analytics and you'll see a big old spike at like 8 p.m. on a Thursday. And you're like, what the heck? Why was so much traffic coming in? It's oftentimes that. So we see a lot of sessions come onto the website from Google, not just specifically around Shark Tank, but just in general. People hear about us word of mouth. We have, our customers really do love our stuff. So they do wind up talking to their friends about it. So we do see a lot of direct traffic as far as, overall volume goes. But as far as paid efforts, Facebook and Instagram, even in spite of, a year out from iOS update, we're still seeing great traffic come in off that. And we're seeing really great conversions and people being relatively sticky coming in from there.
How did you guys respond to the iOS 14 update? And was there any kind of strategy change on that end?
Oh, certainly. So I actually came on board post iOS 14 update, maybe about 6 months after it actually went live. But in my past, fortunately enough, did not plan this, but it worked out quite advantageously. So right out of college, I started working in startups doing growth marketing. And that was 2019, I think, somewhere back there, pre-iOS 14 update. And so I kind of learned the initial ropes of how things worked with that and how you could, do different targeting on Facebook. That was like my very first touch point. Did that for a while, but pandemic hit and I took a brief time off to try and sell some real estate. Decided I was going to be the guy on the park bench. Call me if you'd like to sell your home. Yeah, it was fun for about a couple months, but wanted to come back to it. Conveniently enough, though, I had kind of taken the time off right when that launched. So when I was getting back in, I came back to work at an agency in New York, doing a lot of like healthcare clients. I kind of had to relearn the ropes. And so I only really did the bulk of my learning and studying of the industry, so to speak, post iOS 14 update. I had the foundation. I saw what it was before, but I haven't had to adjust my personal strategy of how I approach it too much. So fortunate there. PetPlate itself, they did actually take a brief moment. They kind of scaled back spend, laid low for a little bit, reassessed strategy. And of course, there's always, logistical things as far as, when the pandemic happened, there was a period where we kind of dropped off, but then obviously we're a subscription dog food company. You can see the clear benefits of, during pandemic, the benefits of what we're offering there. So then we kind of scaled up pretty quickly after that. We keep things real broad most of the time. We do some, like I said, we have pretty robust retargeting efforts, and that's where we see the real efficient scale come in for sure.
What type of content are you producing for your ads? What does the creative look like? Like, how are you designing it? Is it videos? Is it photographs?
Yeah, we definitely keep things pretty, I don't want to say low lift because there is a lot that goes into it. We have a great video editor, and the whole production team's great. But we keep the visuals of it very, even for ads that are made in-house, pretty UGC. And we're filming on iPhones. We're not filming on, high-grade cameras. And it really varies a little bit by channel. Obviously, something on TikTok's not going to work on, Instagram per se. But everything is very UGC focused. It's all videos. I think in the entire time I've been there, we've had one static image that pulled any sort of traffic. I'm pretty sure it was because it was a promotion at a certain point. Yeah, it's all videos. That's kind of where the public is now. Short form video. Certainly, obviously, from your side, you've seen the benefits of long form on YouTube. We don't, unfortunately, filming a very aesthetic haircut and beard shape up is a great thing to watch for 10 minutes. Feeding your dog, maybe not so much. Let's keep it to a tight 15 seconds. Yeah, all video content there.
So is that essentially what the content is? Do you have any kind of like hook to start? Or are you guys like kind of focusing on the first 3 seconds, or, tell me more about how you build these videos out. How long is the video going to be? Have you, kind of tested like a 2-minute long video and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, we actually have a pretty robust testing schedule, I'll call it. So that's pretty much exclusively what we focus on. Pretty much the biggest piece is that even if you do have a longer video, maybe it's 30, 60, even, 120 seconds, catching the first, we used to say 3. Now my team started to refer to it as the 2-second hook. Attention spans are shortening rapidly thanks to TikTok. But so really what we'll do, if we find a really good concept and we'll film it, maybe it's like, building out your dog's meal, putting all the different ingredients in the bowl and everything very aesthetically. We'll just have a good idea like that. We'll film it, and then we'll make something like 5 to 7 different versions of it, mainly playing around with that first 2 to 3 seconds. Even if it has nothing to do with the actual video, just playing around with the hooks. What's going to get people to stay on? I'm sure I'm not saying anything that anyone on the growth marketing wouldn't have heard or experienced in their own path. But if you can get them past the first 2 seconds, 3 seconds, people will watch for a lot longer, even if it's nothing to do with why they came along. It's just the scroll stop is what you got to work on. So really what we'll do, like I said, we do a lot of UGC iPhone type footage, low lift, but looks organic. And then we'll play around with the hooks. And we have a very rigorous naming structure to how we actually name the ads in platform. So we can actually go and do some like interesting data analyses on the back end and figure out all the different attributes of what we put in that video and how we can iterate off of that, whether it's length, hook, type of model, type of dog, even in some of the ads. So yeah, we try and do a lot of that as far as setting up all the ads ahead of time so that we have better access to optimize and do better as we actually run them live.
Yeah, so you'll test, you said like about 5 different pieces of essentially, I'll call it the same ad, but 5 different versions of that.
More or
ad.
less.
And then, So how much will you put into that test? Like $100 per variation? Or is it even less than that you're able to quickly figure out what's going to work and not work?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook will tell you real quick, TikTok even more so. I don't know if you've ever run TikTok ads, but I'm sure a lot of people have started to or have for at least a little while. TikTok and Facebook also, but mostly TikTok. So I'll use that as an example. If you put up 3 or 4 or 5 ads in one ad group and they're all iterations off each other, TikTok will just decide that 1 or 2 of them are really cool and the rest of them are garbage, and they will not spend no matter what you do on those ones that it doesn't like. So we listen to the platform. If it's not going to serve the ad to people, we'll just turn it off and kind of let the natural selection process happen. And we're not afraid to kill something quickly. If it's been even 24 hours and one ad has call it $1,000 to spend, another one has 10, we're just going to kill the other one and let the performing one just kind of roll with it.
How often are you guys getting new content? Like, talk a little bit about that machine in terms of creating ads, and then what is a good length of time for an ad to run? And obviously the poor ones, they're within hours, but the good ones, how long can you expect to get out of that?
Definitely. It totally varies. I mean, from the time I came on, about 6 months, the first 6 months that I was on the team, we had just a couple of 2 different versions of one UGC that we had one of our creators make with her dog that just would not stop getting better. It seemed like every week we were doing analysis on the platform and our CPA just kept going down. And so we're just not going to touch something like that. But in general, we'll see, call it 30 days for a really good piece of creative before we start to see some fatigue. We also try to move things around into different audiences. Again, whether it's, a raw cold prospecting or maybe a retargeting. But as far as the machine goes, when I first came on, it was just, we had a backlog of footage. We had our head of creative content, Farrell, who's fantastic at just kind of churning out really high quality, but still, organic looking content. And he's working a lot on our TikTok now. But since then, so originally we had like a backlog of footage and we would try and, parse together different things. And we had an agency for some of it at the time, but we've been trying to in-house as much as possible. But lately we hired maybe 4 or 5 months ago, a video editor straight out of college, young guy who just crushes it. He can turn things around in 45 minutes from the time that we have footage to the time we can, start sending it around for approvals under an hour. I could go get lunch and come back and it'd be ready. He's amazing. So it is very burn and churn.
Yeah. Along those lines of a video editor, so how many pieces of content is he outputting a day then? Like, what is a realistic expectation if someone's going to hire a video editor in-house?
Yeah, I mean, it totally varies. Some days we'll be like, hey, we have some footage from our founder, Ronaldo, who he shot on his iPhone over the weekend. Can you make 7 different versions by the end of the day? And he'll go, yeah, sure. And we just won't see him for a little while. He'll come back and go, yeah, here you go. But I'd say on average, totally depends. He helps out with some of the organic stuff too. But I would say, we get probably on average 2 pieces of content a day when we're really running. Because some days we won't need anything.
Right.
And of course, if we have ads that are working, we're not going to turn them off just for the sake of, trying new stuff and, giving him extra stuff to do. If there's nothing for him to edit, he'll have a day where like, okay, I'll work on organic TikTok today and go help out the core team there. Yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 pieces of content on average, probably about reasonable. Again, for a guy who's just really cutting them through.
Right. I was curious, you talked about you test different hooks. Are there any pieces of content you've produced in the past where the hook really stood out as, like we nailed it? And if so, like what was said that you feel like you could attribute to that hook performing well?
Definitely. And that's interesting because there's a lot of things that you would think going into it would work really well. I'm sure, again, I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know, but you have a piece of content or a hook. You're like, oh, this is going to like crush it. The view through rate's going to go through the roof, and then it'll just flop and nobody will watch it and you'll get 0 conversions. And then you'll have something that's very innocuous that does really well. So for example, probably the best hook that we had was with one of those UGCs I mentioned before that we were running when I first came on for, 4 or 6 months. It was just a pan up shot of a bunch of our food containers, which come in, these resealable type tubs. So they're great for stacking. They're great on camera. Very fortunate with the content I get the props that I get to use. But it was just a bunch of them stacked up, all colorful and everything. And then the creator's dog, who's just the funniest looking thing you'll ever see in his life, just standing next to the containers. I mean, it's just a pan up shot. And the dog just has this weird look on its face. And it just killed it. We put it in front of everything and the view through will go up. We could have a video that's just, our founder talking to the camera. We'll put that in front of it as he starts to, intro what he's talking about in the background. And that version does better. So that's one thing that, of course, I do have the benefit of working at a dog company. I basically post videos of dogs on the internet all day.
Yeah.
That's kind of my job. So I'm very fortunate their dogs are very viewable, very likable. So not really complaining there. But there are other things, like I said before, that you think would do really well as far as hooks go. I was born and raised on a farm in New Jersey. So I have, basically all we did in high school was light bonfires and blow things up. So I figured, hey, why don't I bring my practical skills from my background into video production? So I had the great idea to go back and 4th of July, fill a bunch of bowls full of kibble and just plant some M80s underneath and just get a slow-mo shot of just some kibble exploding and another shot of just lighting kibble on fire and having these giant flames come off of it. First of all, brand team wasn't super thrilled about those. I guess it wasn't on message perfectly. Understandable. But yeah, no, we put those in front of some videos and there was only one that did even remotely well. People just, I don't know what it was. In my mind, if I saw some kibble exploding on my Instagram feed, I'll probably stop scrolling. But, again, that's the separation of what you like versus what your customers will like. Right. And fortunately enough, that was a very low lift, easy thing for me to do on a weekend. Didn't really waste too much time or resources doing that one.
Yeah, you might like it, but what if you bought the product as well? I mean, how much of it is you have creative that performs very well that people enjoy, but doesn't convert, like,
Yeah.
I guess, like, is that one of the metrics you're focused on? Or if you're focused more on, if we get the views, eventually the sales will come, and it's less about like a really tight attribution for your ads?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have a pretty like, obviously the attribution, or rather the consideration timeline for our product is not always immediate. Sometimes it's more like 4, 5, 7 days. People have to think about it, go back, look at their kibble and go, yeah, maybe I should try something else. But as far as like the attribution and like what we look at on Facebook, for example, again, I mentioned I was at an agency in the past before. And with a lot of those clients, we were looking at things like click through rate, view through rate, what the higher funnel metrics were. Really with PetPlate, we're looking, what was spend, what was the CPA, what was the conversion rate. Every once in a while, if we first launch an ad and it's getting a lot of spend and we're seeing, a decent bit of traffic come off of it, obviously you want to wait for the attribution to come in. So we'll look a little bit at, click through rate there to see if it's, engaging enough before we decide to turn it off entirely. But really, mostly we're looking lower level. Is it converting? I mean, I guess we're fortunate enough that, our product is a very attractive thing for people that are in the market for that. So, we're fortunate to be able to look at basically just, hey, are people buying it off this ad, rather than, oh, let's get some traffic and eventually it'll work itself out. A bit more direct acquisition.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that it was great that you're just essentially posting dog videos all day long, but
yeah, it's a hard life.
I got to imagine there's actually, in all seriousness, that could be challenging as well. Like, cause you're looking for this perfect, like, emotional appeal. And it's not like I can just tell the dog to do something. You have to kind of randomly capture it. So, is there any kind of like really well-trained dog that you have on your staff that, kind of like Frasier's dog from the show Frasier? He could just do anything on a dime.
Oh yeah, I love that. So again, two halves to that. We have like I mentioned, our brand team before is great at building the foundation of what our brand is and what people associate with it. And our copywriter happens to be married to a gentleman who's a dog trainer. So for the more brand forward shoots, when we're going into summer, we'll do like a picnic setting and do just a day full of content, a little higher end there, actually bringing cameras and stuff on. And so we'll have dogs very well trained, sit, put the paws up on the counter, do all the things that you want them to do for, still imagery, CRO type content. But as far as paid social goes, we go the opposite direction. We go, hey, let's just get a bunch of dogs and let's just not train them and see what chaos we can create. Not actually, but our office is full of dogs all day. And there's definitely some rivalries that go on between the different dogs walking around, and they'll just do fun things. And so we all have our cameras out all day, kind of a standing rule that if a dog does something funny, you better capture it, even if, you might be on the operations side. And if a dog's doing some crazy thing, like, please drop what you're doing and get some video. Because again, they are hard to control. They're maybe not as hard to control as influencers, but yeah, no, we try to just get it as organically as possible, see what they'll do and roll with it.
Yeah. And, your content production's all in-house now, or is there any agency that you're still working with?
Nothing like running, or nothing on a consistent running basis. It's all pretty much in-house at the moment. We contract for, periods with agencies to see, kind of test against ourselves, kind of a gut check thing. Like, hey, let's see what they'll produce. It's good to get some outside influence or perspective on it, on the process, and get some new content out of it too. Get some new faces, some new dogs in there. And we do try to, when we do those relationships, get, rights to the footage that we can edit it later. It doesn't always work out. We do pretty much entirely focus in-house.
Yeah. One thing you talked about early on was, and throughout our conversation as well, is TikTok. And TikTok is, the thing that everyone's talking about now. And I'm getting sales emails galore from people who promise to blow up TikTok. Is there any kind of secrets to TikTok that are different than Facebook and Instagram?
If you know them, please tell me. We're really kicking off our TikTok presence currently. I mean, compared to, we're by no means launching it this week or anything, but we've had it up for a while. But we're still in the learning phase. We're still figuring it out ourselves. The biggest thing that we have realized, which obviously not saying anything that people that have worked with it haven't found out on their own, a lot of it is that you have to be a bit more content forward rather than just hook them and then talk about it in a creative, interesting, and hopefully converting way. It's very much, hey, let's make a video that people want to watch, even if it had nothing to do with the brand, but also mention the brand. It's definitely more, so I don't want to say subliminal, that's not the right word, but it's very,
It's more like product placement.
yeah, a bit more. It's creating content to get people to engage with your pages or at least watch through the videos so that they can then hear about the product at the end. And we found that ads that do that very well, you'd imagine it would really just drive a lot of traffic to the site, but no one would really convert. You'd think it would be more brand recognition. But we found that if you can get a really quality content heavy video and then have the product at the end, you'll see some pretty solid conversions eventually. It takes a little longer to scale up, for the algorithm to adjust who it's serving it to and things like that. But yeah, that's really the biggest piece of secret sauce that we found is just you got to make content, even on the paid side. And actually, when we were down in Texas, we were listening to that woman from I forget the company's name, one of the beverage companies.
Poppy,
yeah, that's the one. Talking about how their biggest thing on TikTok ads is to really just go full bore on their organic TikTok, which I mean works well because that's where they came from. That was kind of their jumping off point. They had the benefit of that being kind of their primary channel. But they'll just put up organic TikToks, and when something really lights on fire on the algorithm, they'll just ping it immediately over to paid, put some spend behind it, and give their creative team time to kind of make some iterations that are a bit more on the paid side, and then put them up and just kind of send it to the moon. So kind of sourcing the paid from the organic is kind of the approach you have to have with TikTok. And funny enough, a lot of stuff that works on TikTok will work on Facebook, but definitely not vice versa.
Yeah, it is an interesting time now with TikTok coming into the space as a major player. We personally have seen, at least from an organic perspective, tons of views on TikTok, tons of followers, but very little of those people are converting. And granted, like our content is not necessarily designed to convert people or drive sales, but it's just kind of interesting to see, how much more challenging it is to convert a TikTok user than in our case, a YouTube user who's a lot more engaged and invested in the content we're producing.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask about too, because we don't have, we've never really put any resources into YouTube long form, not YouTube ads, but actual channel. And of course, that's kind of where you guys, primarily came from. Do you find that people are more engaged there and more willing to buy? Because I was joking when I met you down in Texas, down in Austin, that I was probably the longest lead time beard brand customer ever. I started watching you guys when you first came out, whenever that was, 2012, 2013. And I didn't buy something until like 3 weeks ago. So a very long lead time on my part. But do you see that people are more willing to buy when they watch a long form versus, like you said, what's going on TikTok?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more trust and affinity to the creator on YouTube, generally speaking, depending on how you create the content, compared to TikTok, where the affinity is to the content. So let's say people like transformation content of people getting haircuts. They'll just watch a bunch of haircuts. They don't really care who's doing their haircut. What they care about is the transformation. Whereas on YouTube, people care about our barbers and the way that they do it and the style that they do it more so than the transformation. Obviously, they like the transformation as well. And they probably do watch other content on transformation. But, there's just this, this is the beard brand way of doing it. This is the beard brand barbershop. And I feel like it's just an outcome of long form video and kind of like personality based. But, to our conversation earlier about Allison with Poppy, who was also on the show, I think you can do it if you have that regular founder, that regular creator, and you're hitting on content on a very regular basis. But I do think it is a lot harder on TikTok than long form YouTube.
For sure. And it goes to say that nurturing some of those personalities over time can be really beneficial. I mean, again, like I said, I watched you guys years and years ago. And the thing that was really fascinating to me, because sorry to let you know, I hadn't subscribed in the past 3 or 4 years. But when I came back to the content, when we met down in Austin, I was surprised that a lot of the same faces were there. Like you guys do a very good job of retaining talent. I'm sure that they're all part of the company as a whole as well. But the barbers, the talents, the models, and everything. And I think that goes along with, we had a brief discussion kind of about your business philosophy of how you design a company as a whole and how you kind of want to create a life with the company rather than, hey, let's get some people in here to start selling products. What's kind of your outlook on keeping those people around for a very long time in an industry where the average lifespan of anyone, brand side, creative talent, or, paid side is, I don't know, probably 18 months, 2 years. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly hard, and we've certainly had turnover like any other company. But for me, our core value is freedom, hunger, and trust, and to kind of have this understanding that with freedom is the understanding that people have the right to leave. Like they have to choose to work at Beard Brand, to stay at Beard Brand. Yeah. So trying to create an environment where people want to work at Beard Brand is something that's really important to us. And, how do you do that? I think like compelling salary is helpful, but I think more than that, like compelling problems to solve. I think people need to enjoy the work they're doing and kind of the problems they're working on. And if they're working on the wrong problems, then it's not going to be fun for them. They'll want to find a different opportunity. So, or working with, the wrong team, the mesh isn't there. So yeah. And, like just try to treat people well and be appreciative to the work they do. And, sometimes you just get lucky, like Carlos has been with us longer than pretty much anyone else on the team. And he's one of our regular faces. But where can people connect with you? Where can they find you? You're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's just my full name. You can find me. Fortunately enough, I have a surprisingly uncommon name. So I should be the first person to pop up. LinkedIn, Twitter.
What's your full name? Because I introduced you as Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Jackson Reiter. Reiter, old German spelling. Also on Instagram. That's mostly for fun, though. That's just my drum videos as my little side project. Yeah, find me anywhere, connect, shoot out a message. I'm more than happy to talk.
And then head over to PetPlate, right? And get your lunch, even if you don't have any pets, because it's human grade food.
Yeah, I would joke around with my roommate all the time. He meal preps. I'm like, man, I could just bring home PetPlate. Why are you doing this? All this extra work? Just eat this stuff. Put some sriracha on it. You'll be fine. But yeah.
All right, Jackson, thanks for coming on the show. I enjoyed it. Learned some new things. Hopefully our listeners did as well.
Yeah.
This has been another e-commerce Conversations. Cheers. Keep on growing.